Hey, welcome to Whiskey Wednesday. I am remote for the first time in a while. Joining me tonight is, I'm probably still pronouncing his name wrong. I think it's Ravi. I like to say it's Ravi Bhatia, but his sister was giving me a lot of crap today about it being wrong. But joining again is the benevolent Ravi Bhatia. And the ninja, Dr. Jason Pittman. Tonight we're going to go over some quotes from Dan Pena. It's a little bit controversial based on the circles you want to swim in. I'm your host, Dr. Dan Ford, and this is EchelonOrchid.
Guess who's back?
Good evening, my friends. Ravi, I don't know. Right New's got me so confused at this moment. No idea what to call you.
He's having fun with you.
I'm just going to call you RB. That'll make it
I
easier.
like it. Thank you.
She did. She gave me so much crap today. She's like, that's not how you say this.
God.
He's never said anything. I'm like, am I saying your name right? She's like, yes, it's Rain. Ooh. Oh, well, am I saying it right? That's all I want to know. I just want to pronounce people's names right. I just feel like I owe them that.
Oh, watch out. Watch out.
Well, this whole time you've been saying my name wrong for 10 years. It's Jason.
Yeah, but I don't care. You've had 10 years to correct me. That's on you. I've known Ravi for like a year, right?
1
It's
year.
about a year.
It's a
So
1 year anniversary, I think, this week.
it might be. It might be. So, hey, Jason, you've had 10 years to tell me I'm wrong. That's on you, bro. At that point, it's set in stone. You don't get to change it.
Okay.
So last weekend, it's been happening a lot. I get all these, I'll go onto YouTube, I'm looking at my stuff, and by the way, I'm at 10 cents right now. 10 cents. That is over period is 100% more period over period. I'm like, in 20,000 years, I'll be pretty rich.
Impressive.
But, I start doing stuff for the show, and I'm looking at YouTube, and all these different shorts come up. Ever since TikTok come up, it doesn't matter if you're on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, they've all got shorts, and they're just reproducing TikTok videos. And all these Dan Pena stuff started coming up, and I'm like, who's Dan Pena? Okay, I honestly, I didn't know who he was. I didn't watch his video on Joe Rogan like the ninja has. But the ninja was watching Joe Rogan well before I did. Many years before I did. So I'm like, all right, who is this guy? All right, he seems legitimate. Let me look at some of this stuff. But one of the ones that got to me, which TK and I talked about last week, which was, why do eagles fly alone? And I'm like, that's a pretty interesting concept. I like this. In my mind, I went, well, they're birds of prey, and they're a very few bird that doesn't fly in a flock, whereas geese and all these other, they fly in a flock. That's how they prey those. But birds of prey, like an eagle, don't. And I went, well, the higher up you get in the hierarchy, the less people you care about. Care in that you care about their opinions, because you're like, hey, I'm at the top of the food chain, so what's hunting an eagle? I can't think of anything that hunts an eagle.
Other eagles. That's it. That's it.
Right? So, how do you all feel about that aspect of, well, eagles fly alone? How does that relate to us as being leaders? Is it truly lonely
would you like
at
to
the
go
top?
first, Ravi?
I think it's fine to be alone, because it definitely corresponds to our Eastern thinking, where being alone, the ability of a person to be alone and be with himself or herself and be at peace is defined as a rational thing. And in fact, the definition of insanity is somebody who cannot sit 5 minutes by themselves in silence. So it is absolutely congruent to leadership, I think.
I'm glad you said that part because many people think I'm insane, and I can definitely sit more than 5 minutes in myself in silence. So, perfect.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I totally agree with what you said. I think learning to be comfortable with oneself is an important part of development and maturation. However, given the context, can you say the quote one more time, please, Dr. Ford?
It is. Let me see if I can actually find the direct quote, just to make sure I'm not.
He's Googling it.
I've got all of his quotes up here, like that are all like his most popular. But essentially,
And you can paraphrase it. That's fine.
Well, eagles fly alone.
Okay. And so, based on my limited observation of Dan Pena, I would agree with your synopsis insofar as he's trying to establish that if you're going to be successful, you have to be not only ruthless like a predator, and insofar as you don't care about the prey, you're just being a predator, right? It's an emotional state. But you have to be comfortable with leaving. Like he talks a good bit about not caring about one's family. He talks a lot about Steve Jobs and delineates himself against Steve Jobs by saying at least he admitted they were his kids, whereas Steve Jobs famously didn't admit that his daughter was his daughter. So that kind of sets the stage of Dan Pena's character that he's putting on, right? I think it's one of the most fucking retarded metaphors I've ever heard in my life. But it's so cringe to me, man, when people promote themselves as a leadership guru and they make these analogies to apex predators. I mean, you said it, right? The reason why eagles fly alone is because they're fucking raptors. They have no need for a flock because they're hunting those birds. So why would they do it? And most apex predators are like that. Guess who's not? Us. We've never been solo creatures. We operate in small tribes and small groups, and we do that for safety and defense.
We're
right?
social animals, and we work in organizations where teamwork is important, and leadership is about teamwork. And the leader who comes out and says, "I am the leader," is most likely not the leader. The leader.
Yeah, well,
So then, do you not think humans are an apex predator?
No, we're not.
I think we absolutely are, but in a different way. So we can quickly adapt to the environment, and we can use each other's strengths in order to make sure we put people in the right position to do that. A lion cannot. You present a lion with a situation that it's never seen before, it doesn't know how to respond. We will quickly pivot and still be able to accomplish it when we have a good team. And I think as a team, that's where humans, not an individual, become that apex aspect. A lion cannot, a falcon or an eagle cannot, they can't adapt to that changing environment.
I would agree we're by far the most adaptable. Here's the easiest delineation.
And I just got to tell you, my hat is on point.
Here's the easiest delineation, all right? Because you've heard me say this before.
Yeah.
And how many people in northern India get eaten by tigers every day?
I don't
last
know.
Time I checked, last time
Ravi,
I checked, the statistic is 3.
Ravi, how many? How is that? You were born in Mumbai, at least according to Ray News.
Right.
So
That's correct.
So how many people in India are getting eaten by
Well, I can tell you one
It's
thing.
more than one.
I really don't know the answer to that, but I know in Mumbai in the 70s and 80s, 5 to 6 people used to fall off the trains that had no doors, where they hang out outside the trains every day. That I can tell you.
All right. So go with me here. Let's assume it's a non-zero value. At least one person a day gets eaten in northern India by tigers, right?
It's a lot
All right.
already.
How many tigers are getting eaten every day by another predator? And I'll tell you that number is fucking 0. The tiger is an apex predator. That humans are not apex predators.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't think we're.
That's why we have to be communal.
We are social creatures.
Well,
Now, I agree psychologically that this is the big difference between us and every other form of life on the planet, as far as we know, is for mental health, we require some measure of solitude. And I think that's, where I agree with this part of the sentiment that you have to be comfortable being by yourself and you have to be comfortable taking on responsibility. I think that's really Dan Pena, is not Dr. Dan Ford's point, is that you have to be okay with that kind of isolation if you're going to lead, because you're at the top of that hierarchy, you're at the front by yourself.
We've got to dissect what Pena says, because some of it we can relate to, such as it's lonely at the top. Okay, we can dissect that. The other point is that there is a pathology that some people have that who get into leadership positions where they become predatory in their behavior. That doesn't mean that all of us are like that. That just means that there are some people that are prone to that.
Would you agree it's also not true that in order to be successful, as Dan Pena defines it, which is through money, that one must be predatory?
Yeah, you don't need to be predatory. In fact, there are, and part of it is our flawed concept of what success is. Success is a journey, and if you're going to measure success by money, then you would say that Mother Teresa was a failure. I mean, there's a woman who did amazing things in her life that changed the world. So we have a very, very narrow view of success if we're only tying it to money. But if we're tying it to somebody who leads people and changes organizations and really makes an impact, then the teacher you had in 3rd grade is possibly the leader because she helped shape you.
Well, I think that's a very good point. And so the next one I want to bring up, even though I fundamentally disagree, we're still apex predators over a tiger. It's an outlier that one tiger can beat one human, but that's fine. So this is one that I really I like this one. Don't waste times on things you can't change.
Good.
It's very stoic.
I absolutely agree with this. When you take a look at any problem, take a look at it. The stuff you can't change of that problem, who cares? Focus on what you can do, not on what you can't do. So I think Dan Pena, this particular one, I think he is
We'll give him that.
100% on point there.
Well, see, and I'm going to go so far as to I'm going to go on a limb here. I'll say it that way, right? And the things that Dan Pena tries to pawn off as these grand metaphors, like eagles fly alone, are disasters. They're just absolutely fucking dumb. Whereas the things where he bases an assertion on experience, like you just gave us, I think are actually pretty poignant. Yeah, I agree. I don't find any fault or flaw in that assertion whatsoever.
And, RB.
That's quite distinguished.
I look, I'm going to see your sister tomorrow, and I don't want her beating me up.
Tell her his name has been changed to RB.
She'd be fine with that because I'm not mispronouncing your name, evidently.
I'm going to her house for Thanksgiving, and I'm going to say, from now on, Renu, you will address me as RB.
That's right.
I just really want to understand why she's not on here right now. I mean, why you gonna? For I know, Dan,
I invited her again. I said, "Look, your brother says you're scared."
Oh, you're getting me in trouble. Don't do that.
Right? She knows me well enough to know that I'm only partially saying it. That it pretty much equates to RB's not scared of you. So come on. I don't listen any better, but
oh God.
But so RB, what have you say about don't waste times on things you can't change?
Mostly, I agree with it, but then there's the audacity of the human condition that's we keep pushing against that rock or that wall, right? So even though we know that we shouldn't waste time for things that we can't change, if it's somebody that we love, somebody that we care about, and we want to help change them, I think we got to try, right? So I think the human condition is defined by trying to do things that we know are futile in the end.
I like what you just said. And it made me reconsider my position just ever so slightly, and I might suggest Dan Pena refine that assertion to spend no more time than what is necessary. Right, because at face value, you have to spend some time to figure out that it's not changeable.
You don't just give up. I mean, you don't just give up because something is hard or I can't change that. I mean, the history has proven that there are things that were impossible, like the speed of sound was considered impossible until Jaeger broke it. Well, people said, "Oh, don't waste your time with the speed of sound." You know, maybe we'll be saying that about the speed of light. Don't worry, we'll get warp speed. Somebody's got to try.
Well, and this is where I truly enjoy Dr. Jordan Peterson, even though I don't like Elon Musk. And it's been no secret that I don't like Elon Musk. But he's done very many good things. And Dr. Peterson would say Elon Musk created an electronic vehicle, which is basically impossible. And then he actually got it to work, which is basically impossible. What do you make of that? Like it's if so a big part of why I don't like Elon Musk is I feel like in many ways he's just like Nikola Tesla and taking credit for what other people did and just putting it on his own. So, Tesla is very representative of that. But many people think that Elon Musk created Tesla. He didn't. He bought it.
Yeah, he didn't. He wasn't the original guy, right?
Right. But that's okay, right? Like that. I mean, that's perfectly fine. He saw a niche. He had the coin to buy it and said, "I'm going to buy it." They sold. Hey, he saw value, and there's significance in that value that he saw before anyone else saw the value.
That's right.
Even if it's a shitty car, but
well, I mean, to your point, just today or yesterday, I don't remember. Rivian, the next big EV company, is the third largest, I think now, with like zero revenue. Like, what the fuck? How's that possible?
I'm going to tell you right now. I came.
Now their truck is pretty cool,
right? No doubts about that. But like Kia has an EV coming out. It's a little crossover, but I'm not paying $55,000 for this EV crossover, though it's pretty badass, right? It's biometric for me in order to unlock the car and to start it. I don't even need a key fob. That's pretty innovative. Like I dig that. You just have to have your phone in your pocket because it's just doing nothing but connecting back with your phone for all that. Like that's on point. But getting back to our point with Dan Pena, a deal is either hot or it's not.
Come on, some bullshit. Come on, stop the shit. A good negotiator knows. You don't walk in and say, "Oh, this is such a it's such a polarized way of looking at negotiation and deals. The best deals are when you could take the economic pie and expand it, and both sides end up with more than what they ever would have gotten. Integrative negotiation, as opposed to ripping $1 in half and saying, "I got 51%. You only got 49%." It's really sad to even see somebody say that. Come on, it's bullshit.
Ninja,
what do you think? What do you? No. You first. What do you think?
I'm
not going to change my opinion.
I tend to agree more with RB here in that I don't need to be sold to. Right? I kind of know what is necessary, and when people in sales have a legitimate role, and I need that person that might provide me some knowledge that I don't know about. That might take them years. But if I'm a potentially worthy client and they're a potentially worthy, we'll say in this case, consultant, because I'm hoping most vendors I deal with are consultants rather than vendors. It might take them years in order to develop that value. That's a pipeline development. And when you say the deal is either hot or it's not, that means I'm only focused on what am I closing this quarter, not what that potential client might bring me value in the future. So I think it's very short-sighted.
Excellent segue, because I was going to say that I think it's an incredibly myopic and hyperbolic position to take. And this is Dan Pena's character. He takes on this character of being the ultra wealthy mafia don. And I'm not talking about construction. I'm talking about his persona. He actually has it on his website. And
hey, don't make fun of the construction industry. That's you know.
Oh, I wasn't. I was just making the callback to when I've asked you if you mopped up.
Hey, you're just in the Indian mafia. We know it, RB. We got it. We understand.
I'm in construction. Come on.
It's all mafia. We know. We got it.
It's not. It's all legit. It's all legit. Come on.
Hey, look. The ninja's out in North Carolina. He can take a horse head. It's fine.
Hey, listen, man. I grew up in a mobbed up community. I understand. I get it, man. No worries.
In Ohio or when you're in California?
I'm going to be putting this on LinkedIn. My boss is going to see this, and I work for the best construction company in the world. You heard it.
I don't think that's bad. No, listen, man. Down the street, I'm not going to get into it, dude. Every summer, man, we had a festival on the square of the city, and there was like legit. Whatever, man. I ain't getting into it. Anyway,
all right. Change the subject.
So is the deal hot or not? Okay, on one level, sure, right? Because you don't want to waste time with things you can't change. So on that level, we have to agree because we agreed on that. What I don't agree with, which is subtextual to this, but if you watch his videos, especially his seminars, that's not what he means. What he means is that he's going to bully somebody into a sell or fuck them. Now, I don't know any case that's ever worked. It's never worked with me, and I don't know anybody that's actually worked for. So I would love to hear from somebody that Dan Pena closed a deal with that he actually talked to this way. That said, Dan, you know me. I think there are times where, under certain dire circumstances, you have to be comfortable telling somebody to go fuck themselves.
Correct. That's correct.
There's just cases in which that's the right response.
There's always a middle way. You know, these people who take extreme positions. Sometimes it works in our society, but for the regular person, the middle way is the way that usually is balanced.
Yeah, well, because everybody just wants to walk away feeling good.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to feel taken advantage of or screwed, or, I would even say that people that are bullies actually don't feel good when they walk away after being a bully.
Deep down.
I don't know. I don't know they know the difference, but this gets into what was truly a win-win. So when you take a look at the matrix of not like, the bullshit Keanu Reeves red pill, blue pill matrix, but the real matrix.
How fucking dare you.
So when you have something that says you might win 20%, the other person wins nothing. In another scenario, they win 20%, you win nothing. Another scenario, you win 10%, they win 30%. Why would you not take that 10% you win, they win 30%? Because you won 10%. All the other scenarios, you either got nothing or they got nothing.
Yeah, I agree.
You got
to consider it.
This is what economists would call prisoner's dilemma.
Yeah, well, it's absolutely the prisoner's dilemma.
Yeah, I know. And what people don't realize, to RB's point in analyzing Dan Pena's stance, is that, and when you were talking about the view he takes, Dan, God, this is getting confusing fast.
Just refer to me as your emperor. It's fine.
There can only be one.
Well, I mean, you did win as my apprentice.
Yeah, well, I ain't done yet. Yeah, I ain't done yet.
You took out Michelle.
Dan Pena takes a very myopic view of things, at least in this persona he's putting on. Hey, man, maybe it does work for him. Maybe he's really worth $1 trillion. I actually don't care. I really don't care. It doesn't impress me. I don't think about it, whatever. But let's say that's the measure of success of all successes. But it's not, because that only works for one iteration of Prisoner's Dilemma.
Right.
If you're going to play iterated Prisoner's Dilemma, you want to take a Jordan Peterson view, which is you want to be invited back to play again. And you want to be invited back to play again. And you want to be invited back to play again. And the way you do that is by cutting it more down the middle. Just enough to win, not just enough to lose, so that you get invited back, and it's challenging. And everybody grows from it. That's the optimal strategy.
Well, you're absolutely right in that this is where negotiations. People think it's all about the win for me, and that's not true. You got to take a look at the. It's not just the BATNA, the best alternative negotiated agreement. It's about the zone, the ZOPA, of that opportunity of agreement. And that if you are not truthful and you are not taking a look at the person across the other side of the aisle and believing that you will see that person again, which is your point of the prisoner's dilemma, that's a one-time point of view. We should take a look at all negotiations in that it's going to be multiple times we negotiate with that individual. And therefore, if we take advantage of that our one circumstance at a certain point in time, they're going to be able to take advantage of ours, and it does not end well for any party.
I'm going to put a Jedi perspective on this.
That's what the Sith
young Luke. This is very important topic. Do you see the world in a transactional way, which is you can do it once? Or do you see it about building relationships where negotiations are not about screwing the other person, but about establishing a relationship where we can all economically benefit in the long run? That's my Jedi for tonight.
It's the latter 100% for me.
Right. So it's interesting you say that, because let's revisit something. Do you know what is transactional? Predatory behavior. Well, hey, man.
Pena is a transactional guy. Obviously, he doesn't care who he has to F.
Sorry, RB, which will get us all in trouble. My answer was
FCC.
Marriage. My answer was marriage, but I don't think any of our misses may be watching this at the moment. If they are, and any of you agree, we're all getting divorced, so it's fine.
Listen, going forward, this will be a great character. I could just come in as the Jedi.
Yeah. It works well with my Sith and Jason, my apprentice.
I'll be the
he
dark
won.
side.
He beat Michelle. He literally destroyed
Threw
him.
him to a chair. He deserved it at that point, dude. I warned him. I don't know how many times I got to tell the guy, don't touch
It
me.
was many. And I told him, like, look, this is the ninja. I don't really care. All right. So the next one. Don't, under any circumstances, ever second guess yourself.
That's ridiculous.
Another absolute statement, huh?
See, all right, I'll go first. I think absolutely you should, make a decision. Fine, move forward, because that moving forward allows your view, the aperture of the earth changing, and then recalculate. It's okay to go, all right, I've moved forward. You don't second guess yourself when you don't move anywhere. I don't think it's a guess when I've moved from King's Knight 1 to King's Knight 4. I'm now changed. So
look at that fucking chess knowledge. What the hell?
I'm fucking bringing it. I've now changed. I've changed. So how does my view now? That's not a second guess. My worldview has changed. I'm now reevaluating my position based upon my change. And do I like it or not? If I'm doing a knight, I can always move back. I always get to move back unless I'm a pawn. Pawns can only move forward in chess. So I fundamentally disagree. Second guessing is not a problem. You should always continuously consider all possible alternatives, which is why I like game theory, in that you always doing this and it's continuous.
Game theory is amazing. Yep.
I think it's go ahead.
No.
I was going to say, I think it's another example of Dan Pena being overly myopic and overly fake predatory, right? Because if you're playing Prisoner's Dilemma, not the iterated version, you don't want to doubt yourself. You want to be sure that you're making the right move, just like when a predator chooses a prey and commits to that action, because he talks a lot about the cost of action, right? I know he does. And that's how he views the world. And I don't think that's all character. I think it's turned up a little bit for show. And hey, look, man, I laugh when he says some crazy shit too, just like I laugh when Dana White talks that way.
RB?
I think that we have to distinguish also. It's important. People who are thoughtful are always second guessing themselves, and it kind of relates to a little bit of our topic a couple of months ago about this imposter syndrome. That we have. Also, it's different. Second, you can only second guess yourself to a point, and at some point you make a decision, you move forward. But the other thing is that introspection is a healthy thing. And those two things are different. Introspection, you're doing something positive by looking inward. Second guessing at some point becomes unproductive.
Yeah. All right. I really like this one. The overall statement. Any problem solved will be replaced immediately by a larger, more complicated problem. I think that's very true. Because, well, I mean, maybe not in the sense that he's doing it, but as we automate more things, if we fundamentally believe in like a Six Sigma lean-like philosophy, our humans' power, we continuously figure out ways in which to automate. So our human brain power can be focused on more important problems to solve. And so I like this. If I solve that problem and I make it automated, then my people get to focus on better problems to solve. We're not focused on how do I, reset my password. I get to go, well, we're going to figure out how to make everything more automated. I don't know if that's where he's going, but that's how I interpret it. I want to solve better problems. And so if I solve a mediocre problem, then I get to focus on better problems in the future.
Yeah, I think there's some measure of truth to it, because as you're solving problems, they should, if they're sufficiently challenging, you should be growing in proportion to that, and you should be able to take on more complex, bigger, harder problems. But I don't know that it's necessarily factually true, because not all problems are created equal, and what problems you're faced with is completely out of your control. To his earlier statement,
I'm looking at this thing from two different perspectives. One is from an engineering perspective. When I hear people on a construction project and say, "Oh, this is a problem," problems are why we live. If there were no problems, they wouldn't need engineers. I would be out of a job, right? So problems, we want as humans, we want to solve problems. It's in our nature. The second thing is that our fundamental need as humans is that we want to expand. If we have knowledge, we want more knowledge. If we have money, we want more money. If we have stature, we want more stature. If we have influence, we want more influence. So in a way, he's right, but for the wrong reason. It's not because the problem gets replaced. It's because we as humans want to keep growing.
Mm-hmm. Well said. I agree.
Yeah, I tend to agree. All right. Let's see how you think about this one. People that read fucking books don't take action.
I'm leaving.
All right. So I don't know entirely how much you all read, but for the most part, for me, I'm on average about 2 books a week right now.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure
that's my goal.
I take a lot of action. Now, maybe I'm an outlier.
You're not an outlier. No,
I know that both of you read quite a bit, and both of you, or at least one of you, is writing a book. The other one hasn't published it yet because they've been slacking because of some new job. RB. So I fundamentally disagree. If I'm not reading, then how am I getting a better way of interpreting the world in which I see?
Yeah, I mean, basically what he's saying. So I'd say we all respect, if not like, and maybe some of us like him also, Warren Buffett. Like, he's a man of great import. That man reads 6 hours a day. He said when he goes to work, he just reads. And so, to say something as ridiculous as this, and people buy into this, and it's so sad. It's just so sad.
Well, it's to me, Um, it's the height of American anti-intellectualism.
You nailed it. You
It, it,
nailed it. You
it's
nailed it.
the prideful statement of saying, "Well, I'm not a reader." Well, I mean, then what are you saying that
Can
you
you
are?
imagine a world that we live in where our great nation that put a man on the moon in the 60s, we were all about STEM and
Did we?
science, right? Can you imagine we live in a society? And I think The Simpsons got it right because The Simpsons saw this coming, and The Simpsons said anti-intellectualism is at the core of our nation, where it's okay to go out. Would you go outside in public and say, well, you know what? I don't like to think too much. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, I guess stupidity is a virtue.
Well,
That's a
we're going a
dangerous
little bit
statement,
off
my
topic.
friend.
We're going a little bit off topic, but I think you're onto something because I think it's a symptom. It's an expression of the American instantiation of class warfare.
Right.
It's blue versus white collar, and something that white collar people do is read because it's intellectual. Blue collar people don't do that because they're busy working hard.
That's a generalization. Come on, people read. I think people do read. I hope they read.
I know, man. Listen, I've run across a lot of people that are very proud to say that they're not readers.
That's scary.
Yeah, it is. Of course, it is. Anyway,
wait, time on. Can you tell me, Jason? Does this have something to do with also the backlash in the country against universities and colleges, and the whole idea that you're not going to tell my children what to learn, and you're not going to tell me what you can teach them? I'll tell them what's good for them.
Maybe not exactly that. I think a lot of it is class struggle. You know, it's the proletariat versus the bourgeoisie in a non-Lenin sense, a non-Marxist sense. I think a lot of it too is machismo. It's the American version of machismo. If you're a real man, you don't have time for reading, and so on one hand you can analyze that as like being anti-leisure, but I don't think that's actually what the statement is. It's about the focus of one's life in being a man. Because here's the funny thing, in my experience, I don't know that I've ever heard a woman say this. It's always men that say it.
Women are too smart to say something like that.
Well, I think there's
a temperament explanation for that, by the way.
So some people that are saying, hey, you're not going to we as parents should have a say in what our children are learning. You know what? I 100% agree with that. And you know what? That's your job as a parent, is to augment what public schooling is teaching them. So would I love for public schools to be teaching more about how the social contract was actually evolved into the United States, into the Declaration of Independence? Yeah, absolutely. Teach them Jonathan Locke. Teach them how these things developed. But if they don't, that's your job as a parent to augment that. Right? Public school is not a push off to the government my obligation as a mentor to my children.
Well said.
Well, the American public education system was invented in the modern era to train people to work in factories.
100% true. 100% true.
That's not conjecture.
It's industrial. Completely.
Yes, it is. And that's why there's bells. That's why there's periods, right? That's why there's breaks.
I never thought of that, but you're right. That's really a good point.
And that's not a novel thought on my part. I mean, that's been substantiated.
No, I mean that came from Carnegie. It came from Carnegie.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what they wanted, right? And this is a big thing. Like I bring up Jonathan Locke because many people don't know that Thomas Jefferson took Jonathan Locke's primary principle of the social contract as to why the Declaration of Independence was written, and that King George broke that, and people don't get that, right? And we don't teach that, and that's why I think many in society today, and it's a little bit off topic, and I'm certainly very passionate about these things because, well, it's my family history. I mean, it is. I'm directly related to a signer of the Declaration of Independence, and I got to read my family's works, and I know what Oliver Wolcott wanted for this country, even though he was just a general, but he signed a death warrant.
It's Dan. It's great that you can relate and you can make us appreciate and respect the great history of our country. And I don't often meet people that have that sense of history, about the country. And if more of us had that, I think it would be better. We would be better citizens.
Well,
actually,
go ahead, Ninja.
I was going to say two things. I think that's actually, because I've shit on America a little bit, I actually think that's one of the nice benefits of being a younger country, is you're not very many generations removed from the formation of the country itself. And for the record, one of my relatives was a signer as well.
Nice. So you may not know this, Jason. This is a really fascinating thing. So one of TK's mentors shook the hand of the man who shook Lincoln's hand in Gettysburg.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get this in through my head. One of his mentors shook the hand
of a man
that shook Lincoln's hand at Gettysburg.
Mm-hmm.
How is that possible?
Well, TK,
because it wasn't that long ago.
Old.
It wasn't that long ago, man.
No.
In reality.
So the guy whose hand he shook was 100 years old.
So at the time of TK shaking it, he was like in his 80s, right? He was a steamboat captain
and
doing
TK
things.
was a kid.
He was in his 20s.
Okay, so you're like in the 70s, let's say.
80s, yeah, 80s. Early 80s, yeah.
So if he was 80, that was 1900.
Yep.
That is possible.
Yeah.
So and this is where it's all where it's really great when you mention these things, and this is where I go, hey, our country is so great. Like, you weren't born here in the United States, but you're as much an American as you are Indian, right?
This is a great country. I mean,
right?
This is an amazing country.
It's you have, all of us have so many opportunities. If you're a genuine person, you don't care about someone's ethnicity, your religious aspect, your sexual orientation. You don't care. You just care about, are you a good person or you're not.
In fact, I think as an immigrant, I know that my family, we have a great appreciation for, even feel very fortunate to be in America. And you never met my father. He's 83, and he is really the personification of the American dream. Came here with nothing, with $8 in his pocket in 1969. He landed. The day he landed was the day of the Mets World Series parade. He had no idea what was going on. He was in the city. Our family came over later, and he had 2 kids in India, and he came here, and he said, only in America.
Mm-hmm.
Only in America.
Yeah, that is a really cool part of our country, man. You don't have to go back very far to connect to these. And I think, okay, so I'm going to go off on a little more tangent here. I think what perverts this for us in our age groups is that the Vietnam War fractured American society. And so for modern society post-Vietnam, our memory runs up to but stops. Like, how many people talk about the Korean conflict? But it was right before that.
Well, I mean, why do you say fractured?
Because it was so divisive to society. Did anybody protest? Did anybody protest World War II en masse? I mean, the National Guard wasn't deployed.
Well, I'll answer that in a moment.
Type quick, fucker.
Well, I don't have to type. I feel like I know the answer. Actually, I'll just say it. The reason why I believe Vietnam was more divisive is because that was the start of mass media.
I would tend to agree with you.
Right? And so we had, like, in World War II and even in World War I, but we'll go World War II, you had something that was a power that isolated a type of person that needed to be eradicated. And the United States is, up until really that time point, I don't even think in World War I we were considered a an alpha-like character in the world. But in World War II, we thought we were an underdog. We had the capability, and we showed the world we could, and we said, no, you are not taking a sect, the Jewish people. You're not doing this. And that got people, because, hey, we've been underdogs. These people are underdogs. This isn't going to happen. Here it is. In Vietnam, it was a media production, and no one truly understood the shadow games that were being played. And probably many people still today don't understand the shadow games being played in the world right now. So,
well, it's interesting from my view, and I'm interested what you think, RB.
I love how he's got a new nickname, and so now Ray New
fucking
doesn't
works.
give me shit anymore.
It works. It's getting easier. To me, the same historical event caused both of those. On one hand, this event, which I'll say in a moment, led to the rise of America, the United States of America, as a global superpower post World War II industrialization.
Hey, Ninja, I got to ask you something. If World War II didn't happen, do you think we're still where we're at today?
No, and here's why.
All right.
Because it's the same event that led to the media's, let's say...
I agree, by the way. I agree.
The media's intervention in Vietnam, the atomic bomb. Because the media's intervention was a consequence of the Cold War because of the atomic bomb. Had we not developed nuclear power and dropped 2 of them, we wouldn't have had the rise of the superpower because of the industrialization, because we were rigged up for it. And we wouldn't have got into... I'm not going to say we wouldn't have gotten into Vietnam, but it wouldn't have gotten played out the way it did.
I don't know that Vietnam would have existed in terms of a conflict.
Yeah, so you remember so in the 60s was the
And Rob and RB, you were there then, so you could.
I was there. Yeah, I was like 2 years old. But the pinnacle of the military industrial complex can be related to the major projects. There's a great book that you might want to read called Rescuing Prometheus.
Mm-hmm.
Rescuing Prometheus talks about the 5 great projects of the 20th century. One of them is the internet. 3 of them are industrial or military projects: the Manhattan Project and the Atlas Missile Project, and the rise of the military industrial complex that was spurred on in the 60s by basically this confluence of academia, MIT and Ramo, and the guys who were advising Kennedy and Johnson, who basically turned modern warfare into an analytical exercise. They brought analytics into it, and this was like before analytics even. Like we think analytics, they had analytics back then, and they were pretty good at it. And it was cold, it was heartless, and it was completely tied to the economics of the military-industrial complex.
Well, and interestingly enough, remember who gave that famous speech warning us about the industrial complex? That was Eisenhower, who was a World War II general.
Interesting. Right before Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
And Kennedy was really the progenitor of this. You know, he was there at the beginning of this.
Until the mob got him.
Maybe.
And maybe Hoffa or somebody. I don't know.
Who knows? All right.
I couldn't resist. I couldn't resist.
You couldn't resist.
Next one. The older you get, the less you are surprised. I feel it's very cliche. I feel like there's no substance to back that. Like, it's literally the aspect of when you go back to like the Native Americans, the chiefs were because they saw more overall aspects of the sun, right? They get to see the, like, okay, cliche. So what?
Well, it's interesting to me because every 2 quotes from Dan Pena contradict themselves. And so for that to be true, it can't be true that when you solve a problem, the next one is bigger and more complex. Like, at face value, that can't be true. So which is it? If you're never surprised, then you're not working on solving problems.
Right.
So I disagree. No, I don't know, man. I tend to think I work on complex problems. I'm continually surprised. If nothing else, by my own stupidity.
I'm surprised I get up every morning. I'm so old.
Well, but I think that's the thing. Like, if I don't have something that's new, then I didn't change from yesterday.
Exactly.
I have to see something.
I know. I talk about Simon Sinek a lot, but he says this. He said every day you don't have to be better than anybody. You just have to be better than who you were yesterday. If you keep improving, that's all that matters, really.
I agree.
That's success.
Right. That is success.
A deal has to sound good before it is good.
Yeah, actually, I'll buy into that. Sure. Yeah, I think you have to be convinced that it's good, which means it has to sound good to you before you can go make it good. Yeah, okay. I can rationalize that.
Well, but I guess for me, a deal we may not know it's good based upon its first sound. That first string, that first, whatever you want to call it, the thrumping of the strumming of the violin or the guitar. I don't know that sounds good yet. It's just one note.
Again, it's a simplification. Sometimes you might want to analyze the deal before you, but we do go by certain things. We go by gut when it comes to qualitative things in life. We go by gut. If you see somebody, if you're a manager and you see a behavior of a person, in your gut that's a bad behavior. But when it comes to a quantitative thing, I think you need to analyze it.
Well, I and this is where I get into. We always need to analyze, but I'm not gonna. How am I gonna know when it? I mean, I'm not. I think this is why I think it's cliche. I'm not gonna sign off on a deal if I don't think it's good. But what kind of effort did I look into to determine if that deal was good? Many times on the surface, it may not seem like a good deal. Well, all right. Well, let me look into it more. Oh, now I see the value. If I go off that initial gut reaction.
Remember, the guy who's writing this never reads books.
Well, and doesn't think you should doubt yourself.
Fair
and
enough.
Doesn't think you should waste your time on things you can't change at all, ever.
It must be nice to have such a linear and simple life.
Well, I think you could. Sorry, real quick. I think we could agree on at least he's internally consistent in being wrong.
Well, I think he comes to some very many positive conclusions for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, he does. Got to give him
Sure.
All right, so don't be a loser. What I go like? What does that even mean? I don't know what that means.
I think there's a lot to how you talk to yourself. I think there's a lot in how you talk to other people. I don't know if that's what he means. I don't know.
I just go like when I read that when I'm like, who wants to be a loser? I don't think no matter how underperformer, mediocre, overperformer ever would say, yeah, I want to be a loser. I don't think anyone would say I want to be a loser. I don't think anyone associates with being a loser.
No one would say that, yet I am a Jets fan.
No, nobody.
You're
really
not a loser. You just happen to root for a losing team. That's completely different.
Nobody really wants to not be a reader. They just don't know how to make reading fun for themselves. I'm being serious. I'm not making that up.
No, that's
right?
true.
Most people are miserable not because they choose to be, because they lack the tools to get themselves out of the situation they're in.
So here's the next one. And I'll just tell you what it is first. Never, ever share your doubts. I don't agree with this. I doubt many things. And so I would say I'm never going to share my doubts outside of my trusted circle because I know they are going to give me an honest interpretation of how they view it. I have to share my doubts because look, I've got to fine tune my future, my trusted circle, the people that I say you're. When we go back to the hey, eagles fly alone, I only have X amount of friends. I only have X amount of people that I consider peers. Amongst my peers, I am very comfortable in sharing whatever I doubt and whatever I believe. Shoot it down. Tell me what you think, so I have a different interpretation of the world in which I live.
Mm-hmm.
Agree.
Now, let me ask you guys a question. Do you either of you, and this is for both of you, have anybody other than yourself that you tell 100% of your thoughts, including doubts to? I'll go first, not to put you on the spot. I don't.
No.
I have one person in my life that I tell probably 95 to 98% of what I think to.
Well, hey, you're welcome.
2% I keep for myself.
I have one person that I tell things to that I wouldn't tell anybody.
Sure. But even to that person, for me, I don't tell everything.
There's no one I tell 100% to.
Correct.
Agreed.
We're in agreement.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's a bad thing. Like there's things that I would tell the ninja that I might not tell URB, and I wouldn't tell my the missus, things I wouldn't tell TK. Everyone. I mean, I would just be dishonest if I said I told everyone 100%. I can't. Like there are certain things that, like one, all of my close circle of people have a certain strength, and I'm going to tell them the things that their strength will help me. But if I tell them stuff that's their weakness, they are unable to give me a valid, we'll say, response that will help me grow because it's their weakness. Like, look, I know, and RB, I don't know you greatly, but if I were to say many different things, you're a very creative person. And I mean, so from the Michigan model of leadership, which is the best one, I would say you are an athlete engineer, or an engineer athlete, not sure which, but that you are, once you know the process, you're going to like, bam, like you're going to go full steam ahead. And I might be wrong, but I feel like that's kind of who you are. Maybe I'm wrong. Don't know, because we've only spent a couple of hours together. But Jason, on the other hand, is definitely not that red person, which is an engineer. While he appreciates process, he's like, that's for someone else. Jason is very much more, in my opinion, of what we would consider an artist athlete. He's a thinker of the future. Once he understands what needs to be done, get out of my way. Now, not that we all may not have some sage, which is yellow. I'm very predominant yellow. I like to bring people together and get shit done because I want to put the right chess pieces on the chessboard. Now, I amongst both of you have some of that sage, but if I were to guess, Jason is less engineer like me, and Ravi, you're probably less, from that part, less artist. Not that you don't appreciate it, because again, I could be completely wrong. We all have our strengths, and we need to appreciate that someone else brings something to the table that we don't, and we need that positive conflict for innovation to occur.
Well, that's why the primary colors exist on a wheel.
Yeah, I created them.
Now, see, but by the way, real quick before we move on to the next quote, for clarity, the reason why I said what I said, where I keep, like, let's say 2 to 5% to myself, because I've had 2 occasions in which I dipped into that 2 to 5% and said it to the one person in my life that I say the other 95 to 98% to. And the first time I said something, that person's response was, if you go ahead and do that, you're going to get assassinated. The next time I said something to that person...
Well, it's true. You would have been.
Yeah, well, I was talking to my wife about running for president. And her response was, "Don't do it. You'll get shot." And she was dead serious. And another time I was saying something probably even more out there. So like now I'm in the 1% of the shit I think about. And she said, "If you ever say that when we're at a family gathering, you're going to get burned at the stake." I'm like, okay, I'll just keep this shit
Hey, look,
to
let me
myself.
just tell you, you're not getting burned at the stake as long as I'm alive. North Carolina is not that far away. I can be there. I got you.
Fortunately, I'm in the progressive part of the South.
I'm just saying. I know people.
I think your assessment's pretty spot on, man. And I think there's a lot to analyzing temperament. You know, there's other systems that color them slightly different or have different labels for them, but temperaments are temperaments, man. And you know that's fairly well understood to be biologically fixed. And there's exceptions, but most people have a complement of colors, right? They have a primary strength, they have a primary weakness, and the overlap between the adjacent complementary colors. That's natural. Of course it is.
Yeah. All right. Here's another one. We must all remember life doesn't have to be fair for us to succeed. If we take change and become masters and creators of our own destiny.
Yeah, he didn't write that.
I mean, it's attributed to him, so I don't.
Well, I didn't say he didn't say it. I'm saying he didn't write it. I agree with it, but that ain't Dan Pena. I 100% agree with it.
I tend to agree. I don't know if he wrote it or not, but I mean, it's attributed to him. And even if he didn't say it directly, he said it at some point.
Well, so I'm going to take a contrarian view.
Okay, let's hear it, RB. What do you got?
I think that one of the major causes of stress in Western society that we face is that we tie ourselves so much into the results of our actions, and some of the Eastern thinking informs us that if we follow a process, and there was a football coach who talked about this recently. Forget who it was. It wasn't the Michigan football coach. I can tell you that.
Probably not, because Harbaugh sucks.
If we follow the process and we do the right things, sometimes the result is not what we want, but that doesn't mean we didn't do the right things, right? So, you know, I gotta disagree with that. You know, I think you follow the process, and often, and I really believe that the result is so many variables in life into everything that we do. And we are just so self-important as a species that we think we control. We don't control our own destiny. We don't even control the air that we breathe. You know, the layer of atmosphere around the Earth is like a skin on a beach ball. You know, it's nothing, right?
But do you?
It's fragile.
Well, I would go so far as to say, but I believe we control our reactions to what happens.
We control all we can control is our reaction, and we have integrity, and we stay true to a process, and we follow through. But the end result could be affected by so many other variables. So in that respect, I would say let's not get tied up into controlling our destiny, but controlling our thoughts. I think that's more important.
Yeah, sure. I can agree with that.
All right, so here's another, what I believe to be a cliche thing of Dan Pena. You can't have a dream come true unless you have a dream. Well, I kind of go, well, yeah.
That's it's like a circular thing, right? One of the Star Trek movies where young Spock is told by his mentor that he's learning, the AI is teaching him. And the AI tells him that, you know, the fourth law of Vulcan physics is that which is not real can never exist. I mean, what does that mean? It's ridiculous.
All right. So as we're coming to a conclusion, RB, you got one superpower. What is it?
I think that I can read people. That's my superpower. I can read people. And I sense when someone is not genuine. And I really do sense that, and I can't articulate it, but I don't know why, but I can sense it. And it's sometimes it's scary.
All right, Ninja. What do you got?
Well, I'm tempted to say never go to the bathroom again for obvious reasons, but
I mean, it's pretty classic in our history. So
that's one you never forget. Man, like a superpower that I think I do have, or a superpower that I would want to have if I had a superpower.
what if you had a superpower? What would it be?
Oh, super intelligence. Super intelligence.
So like what is super intelligence at that point? Like omnipotence? Like you're getting into what's his name from Marvel? Doctor what was the surgeon that
Doctor Strange.
Yeah, Doctor Strange kind of
super
thing?
smart. Yeah, super smart.
Yeah, that's a good one. If you actually a great one. If you go off Marvel to DC and you look at what Alan Moore did with Watchmen, and he had that character Ozymandias.
Well, okay, all right.
Yeah. Or you go watch the movie if you don't read.
Yeah, so mine's a little bit darker if I really go into myself. And that is, I would love to manifest into anyone else their deepest fear.
That's very scary.
If I had to have a superpower, because I truly am a Sith.
It's not the first time I've heard you say that, and every time you do say it, I really am tempted to ask you why. And I know if I just wait, you'll say it.
I'll tell you. I mean, bottom line is, I think generally humans are evil, and I believe that it's very few of us that can withstand all those fiery darts and take that heat. And so I know that no matter what comes in front of me, so I looked at it as, what could someone do to me potentially that would make me change my code of conduct? Well, that might be because they could bestow upon me my greatest fear and I would have to act. And so I said, well, how do I counteract that? To not be afraid. And so if I'm not afraid, then I want to make other people act upon their fears. And then if they are like me, then they belong to have a seat at the table. And then together we can all make society better.
So let me ask: Is this ability something you just radiate out uncontrollably, and it just affects everybody, or can you target it specifically?
I can target it.
Oh, okay.
Right. So think about it. Right. And so Ninja, you've been around me quite a bit. I, for whatever reason, do have a pretty uncanny ability to figure out what really perturbs you. And I can just needle that to you until you just go insane. Into a way. All right, you want to play that game? All right, I can play that game. Because I'm going to figure it out. It's going to be a matter of time. You're not a good person. You're not acting in good faith. I'm going to figure it out. And I'm going to make you look like a chump. You've seen it. So it's not like...
No, and that is me avoiding it like I always have for 10 years. Because the people that engage with you are the people that fall prey to it.
And that's it.
And I'm not saying it's unprovoked. I'm not judging it. I've just seen it happen.
Well, you also know I've never provoked it. I've always been someone
don't know that I would agree with that 100%.
They did something to deserve it.
I understand how you see it that way. Yes.
That's all that matters. Well, let's put it this way. When all the people that you've seen that this has happened to, do you conclude that they deserved it?
I don't know if I would say they deserved it. I understand what you're asking me. They were willing participants in it because they could have just shut up. I mean, that kind of cuts it off right away.
Same thing. Same thing.
Yeah.
They chose their path, and I helped them through the river Styx.
You have a dark side. You have a dark side, young Dr. Dan.
Oh, it's like it amongst like when there's certain things that I'm like, yeah, that's not like, yeah, I do. I very much do. And here's the thing. This is a big point for all those listening. While I've only been recently in the past couple of years followed the or at least agreed with the teachings of Dr. Jordan Peterson because I didn't know about him. I think this is true. I think we as humans need to be absolute killers and learn how to control it. So that way, the time in which it's necessary, we have that. Because it's easier and better for society to control it than to say, and it comes back down to it's better to be a warrior in the garden than to be a gardener in a war.
Yeah, in modern society, we've agreed to conflate being not dangerous with being kind. When really what being kind is in its overabundance is being weak. You shouldn't seek
not
to be
according
kind.
not according to my boy Alphonse Capone. And never mistake my kindness for weakness. I am kind to everyone that I meet, but if you are not kind to me, my response shall not be weak. And
right, but that's my point. No, and that's my point. Is what Capone was saying in that is that I'm dangerous, but that doesn't mean I'm not kind.
Yeah,
exactly. You can be both.
Absolutely, and I think that's yin yang.
That is, it's the balance,
right? Mm-hmm. Like, look, people that lived in the community that Al Capone and his family lived in, it was the most peaceful. There was no crime there. They like, hey, this guy is great. They loved him because they're like, nothing bad's happening here. And you know what? Go ahead and bootleg and do whatever you're doing because our community is safe.
Interesting. Gentleman
savage. But I mean that is like, look, I get no problem being that person. I don't like to be that person. I actually don't. It's not what I enjoy. I would rather very much focus on the positive elements of us as humans and help everyone be better tomorrow than they are today. Some people...
You hit on something important. I think that we want to be kind and just, and I think it's important that we follow our compass. Sometimes you do run across people that are just not they're gonna try to exploit that, and to that you've got to stand up.
Yeah, well said. I think sometimes being kind is being dangerous. They're not mutually exclusive.
They're not, and I don't. Well, I should say. Some people just need to be told they are not productive to the future.
Yeah, I would tend to agree, man. You know, I think we have an obligation to point out the errors of people around us and help them in a reformation.
And with that, I'll go a little bit step further. I'm not just going to tell them they're not being productive to the future, but I will offer to them my hand, and that I will help them get to that point. Now it's up to them. If they choose to ignore, this comes into my as my mom would say, my Christianity beliefs, which I don't consider myself a Christian. I just consider myself a believer in what I believe. But she would say, well, you're either for me or you're against me. There's no fence riders. And in this case, I agree. I've shown you a path forward. If you don't choose to go towards the good, then you're just going towards the bad, and I don't have time, and therefore I must remove you from the chessboard.
Yeah, man. You know, I've said it before. I think every human soul should be afforded an opportunity for redemption.
How many times is that?
I don't know that there is a time to it.
Well, do I get one chance, two chances, three chances? How many? Like, do you have a number for chances?
I don't think there is a number. That's what I'm saying. I don't know that there's a number that I don't know that I'll say it this way. I don't know that redemption has an attribute called number of values.
All right. So, at what point in time do you no longer seek or assist in the redemption? You wait for that redeemer to seek your absolution and redemption.
Now that's a better question, and I'll go back to Dan. I'll go back to Dan Pena and say that I'll spend as much time as necessary to figure out that it's something I can't control.
RB?
Big question. I think the bourbon's getting to me.
Well, I mean, that's part of the point of this. So, I'll ask you a little bit separately. Have you had? I mean, you've seen many more full moons than what the Ninja and I have. So, have there been some people that you've mentored that became unworthy and have figured out a way to redeem themselves, and then you chose to mentor them again? Because I gotta tell you, that hasn't happened to me.
I think sometimes when you're in a management position, and one of my bosses a few years ago taught me, he said 50% of your job in managing people, managing engineers on projects, is to be a psychologist. And I didn't get that at first, but then I realized that I'm working with all of these engineers that are 25 to 30 years old, young, and it was like a frat house. And my first day on the job, they're like spitballs, and they got throwing balls, and what I did was I related to them, and I said, I just said, okay, when I was in college, it was kind of like this, and start mentoring people, and some are worthy, I would say, but worthy is also it's also a judgment, right? So I tried not to judge, but yes, some were great mentees, others were not great mentees. There was one that was a total asshole, and but he ended up leaving. But still, I had to go through. I had to do what I needed to do, right? So yes, there's no perfect. There's no perfect mentors. There's no perfect mentees.
Well, I gotta say, I don't like. For me, this might be. Actually, it might very well be a big negative on myself, but I have yet to ever take someone back on as a mentee that fell off. Like when they fell off that cliff, I don't know that I can't think of any of them. And maybe that's a short-sightedness on my part because I didn't feel like they were worthy, and maybe they were, but no one have I ever been able to take back on as a mentor when they fell off that cliff, because they did something in many ways that just, in my mind, in my heart of hearts, they broke my code of conduct. And
that's fair.
From a superhero aspect in Batman, I've got a code of honor. People may not like it, but this is what I am, and I am who I am. And if you went against it, I may give you an opportunity, but no one's been able to redeem themselves to me. They just haven't.
It's like the Popeye quote: "I am what I am, and that's all what I am."
Yeah. Well, and I'll leave you with this. I would say Masonically, we have an obligation to help people up to the point that it causes injury to ourselves, our family, or our property. Now, why I think redemption doesn't have an attribute called number of times or number of tries is because it's not all the same, right? And you were just kind of alluding to this, Dan, and I think this is what you were talking about, Ravi. Is
It's
one
RB.
type of,
You will call him RB.
I wanted to see what you would say. Poke, poke.
Oh, because I don't want to hear from Renew tomorrow.
RB.
Ravi.
Look, I mean, Renew is really nice, but she is going to give me so much shit for this. She's watching right now. I can see it.
Don't let her kindness fool you.
I think
I
she's
don't.
wonderful. I've never met her or talked to her.
Yet she is.
But I think
she's a wonderful person.
I think you would agree that not all transgressions are created equally, right? Some
No.
transgressions demand that that person be cut off immediately. Other ones, maybe whatever, dude. Let's keep going. I don't know.
Like if you decide to go to an MBA school that wasn't the University of Michigan, you're out.
Or if you,
This is a form of elitism.
Yeah. It's true. I don't see a problem with this. No. So but this all comes like.
What if I went to Wasamariu?
I don't even know what the hell that is. But
You ever watch the Bullwinkle?
yeah.
So in Bullwinkle, they carry the school banner, and it says
The pennant.
Wasamariu.
Yeah, and he had the little Letterman sweater.
Bullwinkle and the squirrel, right?
yeah,
Rocky
so,
and Bullwinkle. Rocky.
So
Rocky and Bullwinkle.
especially since after I'm done with U of M, we have a particular person that I feel like I've contributed quite a bit to this individual's progression, and they decided to go to get their MBA. And they applied at many places, and I kept saying, apply at U of M. Like, just apply. They didn't do it. So they decided to go to Villanova, which is not it's a top 30 school. Like it's not bad. But
it's not Michigan.
It's not a top 5 school. It's not the number 1 in executive leadership in the country. But there were other reasons. Hey, there's family there, stuff like that. But I went, well, hey, I'm just glad that this individual actually said, here, I'm going to try an MBA. Like, Villanova's no slouch. Like, I honestly, as much as I like U of M, I don't think there's that much difference between the number 1 school versus the number 30 school from an MBA program in the United States. I feel like they're all going to be extremely good, extremely valuable. You're going to get a network that you didn't have before. And, hey, especially if you didn't have an undergrad as a business degree, you're going to meet people you just didn't have. So, perfect.
Well, there would be very little, if any, difference educationally, like the actual education content. There's almost zero. I would argue that the difference is the social network you acquire.
It is.
Yeah.
And you see that in my opinion, you see that in the actual amount of money you spend.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? But you're right from the academics. I don't think there's a difference. For me, and this is what's funny. All right. So Jason and I both being in that tech world, I actually don't know any tech person that has an MBA from a top 30 school.
Yeah, you're the only one I know.
I know plenty of them that went to University of Phoenix. Not there's anything wrong with the University of Phoenix. Look, it's got hey, look, you need just the business knowledge or any tech knowledge. University of Phoenix is perfectly fine. I don't feel like you grow a network from University of Phoenix.
No.
Right? So Jason and I, RB, when we went through the doctorate program at Capital, it just so happened to be happenstance, I think, because I said, hey, Jason, this other guy, Tommy, let's go have dinner when we come into town for our first residency. And then we just connected. I don't know that anyone else did that, but we just did it and we all connected. Jason and I really connected, and was just, we hit it off. And I think University of Phoenix only gives you the academics. It doesn't give you that personal interaction of going, hey, I've got a real colleague here.
Right.
So, for me, U of M, yeah, I got a top-notch, education in business, but I got a top-notch number of people that it would have cost me more in time than the tuition that I had to pay.
Yeah.
I would never have been able to get that in 2 years. In 2 years, that those kind of people, chief medical officer at Henry Ford Hospital, come on, I'm not.
Yeah.
At what point am I ever meeting that kind of person?
There's something to say. My final thought. Don't discount that as part of acquiring that, let's say, higher end social network. Part of that is because of the people that choose to go to a top 30 school. The type of person that would make that decision is not the same person that would choose to go to University of Phoenix, and that makes a substantial difference. And that's not a value judgment. I'm not saying there's something wrong or right about either decision. There's just a difference.
All right, so I'll ask you both this. From an MBA perspective, did I apply to the number one MBA school in the United States?
I think I remember a subset of the schools you did. I don't remember what their ranks were.
Well, so
I'm going to say you didn't.
Okay. RB, what do you think?
You're muted.
I think you did. Stanford, Harvard.
Stanford's definitely not number one, but Harvard is still considered the number one. I did not, because they don't have an executive MBA. It's a full-time MBA, and therefore I did not. Stanford does have an executive MBA, and so they are considered number two, which is still not bad. I still didn't. I didn't go there. They're tied with number two, also with Wharton, which I didn't go to as well. Not that neither Stanford or Wharton are bad. It just happens to be their specialty is much more aligned with those that are going to be in management consulting or venture capitalists. That's just their specialty. So the ones that I applied for were in executive leadership and general management, not those geared towards the VCs or I'm going to go work for an investment company, something like that, because that's not what I wanted. I wanted, well, how am I going to be a CEO? That's the legitimate point. How am I going to be a CEO? And I want to understand those aspects. Not that those that go to Stanford or Wharton or Harvard can't be a CEO. One, like Harvard, I didn't look too much into because they didn't have an executive MBA. It was just full-time MBA. And so they were looking at people that typically transition from their undergrad directly to MBA. So it just was not an option. Wharton, not that people can't be an MBA. I mean, Sloan, which is top 5 as well. Hey, Alan Mulally, who's one of kind of like my heroes, went to Sloan. I applied to Sloan. I got into Sloan. I just didn't accept their deal. I chose Michigan.
I remember a lot of that.
Yeah, I accepted Michigan. My boss at the time and mentor, Gopinath, and I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong, but Gopi is what he always said. He's in Indian. He had said to me, "Hey, why do you want to go to MIT?" I'm like, "Hey, I'm in technology. Why would I not want to go there?" He's like, "Well, let's take a look at the Fortune 500. Let's see where all those CEOs go." The majority of the CEOs in the Fortune 500 didn't go to MIT Sloan. The majority went to University of Michigan. Mm-hmm. So then we checked, well, what about the rest of the C-suite? It's University of Michigan. So then Gopi says to me, why do you want to go to MIT Sloan? So I chose Michigan. So I applied to Northwestern Kellogg Chicago Booth, Duke Fuqua, and I'm probably pronouncing that one wrong, MIT Sloan, and Michigan Ross. Got into all of them, but Northwestern Kellogg. No idea truly why I didn't get into Kellogg. They all asked the same questions, all of the same caliber. They were all top 10 schools. Duke was like the number 10 at the time, according to Poets and Quants. So, how did all of a sudden I get into all of them but one? I don't know. But I chose Michigan because actually, I mean, I'll be the person who was my recruiter. I asked all of them, how do I stack up against other candidates? And she said to me, which this is what convinced me 100% outside of what Gopi said to me. She said, Dan, I think what we can provide you as a university, as an overall alumni, is equal to what you can provide us. And therefore, I believe you will be an amazing person as our future alumni because you're going to bring something different of value, and we can bring something of value to you that you don't currently have. That right there, I went, if I did not get accepted to the University of Michigan at that point, I would have considered myself unworthy. I like that. Like Gopi said, hey, this is where you need to go, and I had my interviews after that, and this was in my application, and I went, that statement said to me, this is a mutual beneficial relationship. I have to be there. Because if it's not mutually beneficial, why would I do anything? If it just benefits me, then I feel like I'm taking advantage. And I think as a leader, I should never do that. So her saying that University of Michigan, a top 5 MBA program, the number 1 in executive leadership at the time, could benefit me just as much as I could benefit them. Hey, my ego was stroked. And hey, I felt valued. They're all the same price. All the top 10, same price. Like it's That's how I looked at it.
There you go.
Well done.
All right, my friends, I've kept you all a little bit long. Any parting words for tonight? RB, what do you got? You don't have your Jedi hat on, so I don't know.
Let's add value to everything we do in our lives, personal and professional.
Amen.
Yeah, well said. Well said.
Ninja?
Be kind. Be kind to people.
Hey, I'll continue this with be better tomorrow than you were today.
Excellent.
My friends, thank you so much again for tonight. I hope to see you all again soon. Next week, Ninja will be on. RB, have a great Thanksgiving. Try not to let your 2 sisters beat you up too much next week.
It shall be difficult.
Especially with one of them.
Oh.
Wow.
Well, I only understand recently because Raynu is like, hey, my sister is like a prosecuting attorney for like the SEC or something like that. And I'm like, really? That would be interesting. I didn't even know you all had another sister. I thought it was just you and her, but
There's 3 of us.
You're the only guy dealt with Raynu and an attorney.
It's tough.
Well, now we know why, you're in construction.
I stay away from...
You have to continuously build bridges.
That's it.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Have a good night, gentlemen.
All right, guys.
Thank
Take
you.
care. See ya.
Take care.
Later.